Hi, my name is Peter Johnstone. Today I'm going to show you how to build a desk. My inspiration to build a desk came from Pete Child, software engineer who's worked at Raytheon, a military weapons manufacturer, for over 33 years. He's been woodworking for over 50 years and owns an entire woodworking shop in his basement. With Pete on board, I plan out the desk's materials. The desk has a budget of around $200, but can be increased or decreased depending on if you have any leftover materials from previous projects or if you're lacking tools. The required tools consist of a drill, a hammer, clamps, a tape measure, and some type of sander or sandpaper, a 7x32 inch wrench, and a table saw. The materials for the desk consist of 2 4x4x8 wooden posts for the legs, 3 2x8x8 wooden planks for the desktop, 2 2x4x8 wooden beams for the skirt, 12 7-inch 7x32mm carriage bolts, 12 7x32mm nuts and lock nuts, around 40 2.5-inch drywall screws, pre-stain and stain of choice. I used Minwax pre-stain and Minwax pickled oak polyethylene plus stain. It's a 2-in-1, so you don't have to coat polyethylene separately, which would cost more money. Wood glue, and I used Type Bond Free. It's a green bottle. And 4 clamps. The first step of any project is to gather the materials. I would recommend Lowe's or Home Depot. One note to keep in mind when buying wood is to make sure it is straight. If it is not straight, it can ruin your entire project. The second step is to cut the 2x8x8 planks to size. My boards are cut 66 inches each, but they can be changed upon preference. First step is to send the edges of your 2x8s through the table saw to create a smooth edge that can fit the other pieces of wood perfectly. The next step is to glue the pieces of wood together using the wood glue. Once the glue is in between the 2x8s, you need to clamp them together so that the wood dries with a flush look. The wood glue takes about 12 hours to dry. This can differ by brand. The next step is the skirt of the desk. You are going to want to measure out how long you need your 2x4 boards to be. My boards were 24 by 64 inches long. Once your skirt is cut to size, you want to clamp each corner of the skirt down to the dried desktop. Once clamped, make sure there is still that 2-inch gap from the edge of the desk to the skirt. Now you want to drill each 2x4 on the corners using the drywall screws while clamped to the desk. If you have a drill press, then you need to remove all of the screws from their respective holes. This is to pre-drill the holes into the 2x4 planks, so they do not crack or ruin your wood. I would be generous with the holes. I had 3 holes in my 24-inch 2x4s and 5 holes in the 64-inch 2x4s. Once the holes are all drilled, you can reattach the skirt to the desktop. Once again, making sure that you have your 2-inch gap. Once attached, you can clamp them down, and you can drill drywall screws into the holes that you just drilled to connect the skirt to the desktop. And now onto the legs of the desk. The legs should be cut to a length that fits the user the best. I'm 5'4", so the legs of my desk were 26 inches. Another thing to keep in mind is the 2 inches that you get from the desktop too. Once all the legs are cut to length, drill 3 holes into each corner of the desk, making sure that the holes do not meet. There will be holes for your carriage bolts. Once these holes are drilled, you can put the legs into position and put the carriage bolts in. Once all the legs are attached, before putting the nuts onto the carriage bolts, check the level of the legs. If the legs are not level, then you can jam items like playing cards or wooden shingles in between the carriage bolts and the legs. These are called shims. Once your legs are level, you can put your lock nuts onto each carriage bolt. Once the lock nuts are on every single carriage bolt, you can screw on the nuts and tighten them with a wrench. Now that the hard part of the desk is done, it's time to stain. First, you should use pre-stain. I recommend Minwax for both pre-stain and stain. Once you have used your pre-stain, you can stain. You should use a stain that both has polyethylene and stain in it to save steps and money. And voila! You now have an extremely functional and good looking desk that hopefully suits all your needs. I hope you found this video informational and inspiring. Thank you for watching.